Hi, Kaushik. Welcome to Climate Emergency. This is a podcast on, all things climate. We do discuss a lot of policy issues, and we also talk about on-ground projects that are happening and case studies. And firstly, congratulations on, winning the Earthshot Prize. I've been following your work for some time now, but I think you guys definitely deserve it.
Thank you so much for the kind words and happy to be here. Thank you for inviting us.
No, it's always a pleasure. So, for people who don't know you, if you can tell a little bit about yourself, where you are from, your education, and where you worked earlier before you joined Kheyti.
Great. Yeah, so my name is Kaushik. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Kheyti. And bit of background is that, I grew up in Hyderabad. So born and brought up in Hyderabad. And then I went away for college to IIT Kharagpur after completing school here. And, the reason that I went to IIT was that because that is the conventional thing to do. If you were good at math, you needed to go to JEE coaching and then go to IIT. And then in IIT, I continued to do some of the conventional things, which was, recruit for consulting and investment banking and sort of have that 10-year plan in place of saying, okay, how should my corporate career be? But my final year of sort of college, I sort of had a quarter life crisis where I realized that, most of the things that I was doing was because they were the conventional things to do rather than ever thinking about what excited me and what, work would give me sort of purpose. And that's when I sort of found this world of social enterprise and impact. So because I had done some volunteering work before, and that was the only thing that really excited me. So then I said, okay, could that be really something that could become a career? And as I started reading, I realized there's so many people who are trying to make that convergence between enterprise and, and building models and building a career out of that. So that's what made me sort of put all of that original career aside and jump headfirst into this sector of social impact. So straight out of college, I joined this startup called Be Able, which is in the skill development space, which is helping school dropouts in rural India get access to jobs through training and placement services. So for me, I had joined that place thinking, okay, I'll learn a couple of years about rural India and then I'll start something on my own. And maybe in like 4 or 5 years time, I'll change, I'll solve all the problems in India because that was my, youthful self. But I ended up, staying 5 years there. And really that became what I call my apprenticeship in rural India. Because, I grew up in a city and I did not know really the problems that were, that I set out to solve. So in the 5 years that I was there, we went from being me being the first employee to us having like about 500 employees. We had set up about 200 training centers. We were training 50,000 youth every year. But more importantly for me, I got to live in about 100 small towns all across India and work in probably 1,000 villages. So I got to see firsthand, all the complexity of challenges and also what it would take to solve them. And in that process, I really got, acquainted with agriculture much more because what we were doing in sort of providing skill development and placement was really important, but I felt in one sense, it was sort of solving a symptom of a problem. And most of the kids that we were working with were from farming families. And those agriculture was failing. So they were looking for other avenues and we were giving them those avenues. But I really became fascinated with the idea of saying, can we solve that core problem? Can we make agriculture so lucrative that we would create employment for so many people in rural India? And, it really started with that perspective first of livelihoods. But then, as I got headfirst into it, I met my co-founders during that time and they were all sort of similar journeys. So before even we started Kheyti or had a name or a mission or all of that, we said we should first be clear about the problem we are solving. So we spent about 6 months talking to 1,000 farmers in 2015, across Telangana, Maharashtra, nice. Karnataka, really trying to understand what is the challenge we're trying to solve that would really create long-term transformational impact and create livelihoods.
Did you document and do surveys and all that?
Yes. So we did surveys, we lived with farmers, we, talked to farmers on the phone. So we did a lot of that. So it is some part of it survey, some part of it was really discovery for ourselves. And really in that process was where the climate angle really came in because every farmer we talked to, we would hear that, right? No matter how much hard work you put into agriculture, the climate decides whether you succeed or fail. It is the rains that decide, the pests that decide, the heat that decides. And as a city kid, when I was growing up, I was told that if you work hard, you succeed. And it is not
Yeah.
true it seemed like it was not true in agriculture. So that sort of became one of the things that we wanted to solve. And the second thing is that every farmer we talked to, without knowing the word that time at least, would talk about climate change. They would say 10 years ago how water tables were different, heat was different, pests were different. 20 years ago, parents' generation. So bad situation of high climate risk and getting worse every year due to climate change. So that really became our mission, because increasing climate resilience for smallholder farmers in India. And that's how the idea or the mission of Kheyti got started.
Agriculture plays a vital role in economy of the country, and we see many startups are also coming up right now. I mean, comparatively, I think it's still a lot less. And you guys have innovated in this space, right? Can you talk a little bit about what you guys do at Kheyti and how innovation plays an important role in what you guys do?
Great. Yeah, so talking a little bit about sort of our thesis towards this mission. The mission was increase climate resilience for smallholder farmers. And to achieve that mission, the first step was, okay, what is the solution for that? That mission is great, but we said, okay, there could be so many different things that you could do. When we then looked at sort of what is happening across the world, we spent 3 months in Israel, we spent a few months in the US, in Europe, to see what farmers are doing there. We realized there's a whole set of technologies that are already sort of being used by larger farmers, advanced farmers, to mitigate the effects of climate change, to increase yields, but also make their farming more sustainable. But they were not accessible to smallholder farmers in India. So really, the way that we achieve our mission is to innovate, to make technologies that will work for an 8,000-acre farmer in the US work for a smallholder farmer in India. And the technology we chose to work on the last 5 years is what we call the greenhouse in a box. Basically, the concept is protected cultivation. It's been around for centuries, I think, if you look at some, some texts, but definitely for decades as a commercial thing. But the concept is basically cover your plants, with different kinds of materials to protect them from the elements. And we liked it because it reduced overall risk, it increases yield, but also it made farming more sustainable because you could use lesser water, pesticides, and fertilizer. And it had been sort of proven it just wasn't working for smallholder farmers in India. That's where innovation comes in. Your second question is that how do you make something work for the 100 million farmers, who own less than 5 acres of land in India? There's two big components of innovation there. First is this really human-centered design or farmer-centered design to make things affordable. If you take something that has worked for a large farmer, in Israel and copy paste it here, it won't work because it'll be too expensive. It'll be suited for what they are doing. So really for us, the big part of our work was over the last 5 years, reducing the cost, not by doing some, technological marvel, but really going back to the drawing board every time and seeing what farmers are growing, what they need, how their usage would be, and what is the minimum we can do to provide them. So with that process over 7 years, we brought down the cost of this greenhouse by about 80 to 90%, depending on who you compare it to. So compared to the, traditional market. But the second part of design is also modularity. You can't bring a 1 acre greenhouse and provide it to a farmer. We realize that small farmers normally save as well in small amounts, right? So the idea is, how do you start small and then keep adding on that you can do more and more. So first part of it was design, which is cost and modularity. But the second part of innovation is also, technology alone is not enough for smallholder farmers, because they have faced hurdles at every step to make the technology work, whether it's knowledge, markets, knowing what crops to grow. So that's the second piece, and finance, right? And finance as well. So all of those things. So the second part of our work really became, how do we keep adding the things that farmers need to make this work? So, so we have a whole set. That's where the inner box comes in. It's a whole set of services around the greenhouse. So over time, we added partnership with financing companies. We added, agronomy training through WhatsApp and in person. We added sort of input linkages so that they can use it in the right way, and also connections to market-based companies so that they can sell their produce. So the innovation really was first by making a low-cost modular greenhouse, and then bundling a package of services which will ensure that a smallholder farmer can use it and succeed in the right way.
That's very interesting. So just out of curiosity, what kind of crops, can be used, can be grown in the box setup that you're talking about? Are there any specific limitations that you have?
Yeah. So the greenhouse is, in one sense, protected cultivation can be used for any kind of crops. But what is the most suitable is the ones that, because it's a capital expenditure, the ones that give
Yeah.
you a return on investment which covers that, right? So with that
Hmm.
perspective, it ends up becoming horticulture, which means fruits, vegetables, and flowers. So
Hmm.
those are the kind of crops that makes the most sense. Traditionally, greenhouses in India were used only for exotic horticulture, which meant
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
lettuce and broccoli and all of that.
Yes.
Because of our low cost and how we've designed it for the Indian farmer, ours work for most of the staple vegetables in that sense that
Hmm.
that farmers use. So our farmers grow tomato, cabbage, cauliflower, coriander,
Nice.
brinjal, all of the stuff that is there as a part of the Indian sort of vegetable palette. So today our
Hmm.
farmers grow almost like 17 different crops, and we are continuously doing R&D to push more to them based on training
Hmm.
and and providing them handholding.